Hi everyone, Stepan here. I have another game on Lichessladders in about an hour. Game 9. Yesterday I won my game. Or for you, 2 weeks ago I won my game. I'm gonna be posting this a bit later. So I've been challenged by Shako Chessmood. And this is his Lichess profile, 2200 Blitz, 2200 Rapid, no classical games. And yesterday, or today, in the comment section on the previous video for Lichessladders, Kamil Klimovitz commented that I don't have to use opening 3 to figure out what my opponents play if I have their Lichess username. So we're going to listen to him. Thank you to Kamil once again. He told me that you could actually search the Lichess database by username, which I had no idea you could do. So now we're going to prepare for Shako Chessmood. By the way, if you haven't yet, check out Lichessladders. This is my 9th game, and I'm going to show you the ladder I'm playing in. I'm playing in the classical 60-30. There's also a fast-moving ladder, but I cannot do that. I don't have enough time. Currently, I'm in 23rd place, although I've won most of my games. Let's see. Yeah, so these are my stats. Let me move this again. So I only had the one loss against Muhammad 876. 2 draws, the rest were wins. And you only get to advance in the ladder if you're the one who challenges people. But yeah, unfortunately, 23 out of 284. Every time I finish a game, I immediately get challenged for a new one. So I don't really, I never remember to challenge people straight away. I'm going to try to do that today. In any case, let's see what Shako Chessmood plays. Yesterday, or in the previous game on Lichessladders, I played the French. Oh, let's flip the board. So let's see what my opponent plays. Okay, I'm gonna try the French again if my opponent plays something interesting. Let's see. Okay, d4, d5. Bishop d3, 94 games. Okay, one game with knight c3. Okay, yesterday I played against knight c3. I won. Let's see if, yeah, my opponent faced the winner. Were ed, how does he play the exchange? c3. Okay, it's slightly passive, but fine. Let's have a look at that. Wow, this is a very strange exchange, French. If he plays the exchange against me, I'm gonna play the line with knight c6 and bishop g4 and queen d7 and castles queenside. Okay, but normally he plays bishop d3. The Schlechter. Okay, so what do I want to do here? If I move on to masters, is it going to... No, it saves. Oh, this is great. I love Lichess. I love Lichess. Okay, so the main move is de4, bishop e4 followed by knight f6, and then bishop f3, and then c5. That makes sense. So this is what he normally plays. Let's just see. c5, what's the move? Knight e2. Yeah, assume if takes, you trade queens take on c5. c3 seems sensible, but I think I just take on d4, or no. Yeah, I take on d4. Okay, so knight e2. This looks a bit like what I do in the Rubinstein French, where I play bishop d7, bishop c6. Okay, knight c6 now. This makes a lot of sense, this opening. Bishop e3, cd, knight d, knight e5. Wow, just gives away the bishop like that. Well, I suppose moving it back to e2 is slightly passive. Okay, let's see. Let's see what my opponent plays. So knight c6, bishop e3, cd, knight d, knight d5. Excuse me, why did I play knight e5 in that game? Wait a minute. Knight d4. Oh, knight e5 is the move. I got confused there. No, I'm not going to go knight d5, knight e5. And my opponent plays knight c3. And now a6 or bishop b4. Well, a6 makes sense. You want to prevent knight b5. Has anyone played a6? No. Okay, so a6. Queen e2 is the move. Knight f3. Queen f3. e5. Wait, am I not worried about knight f5? What? How can this be better for black? Okay, I'm not I'm not gonna waste too much time here. You're gonna see the game in a bit. So this is gonna be my prep. I don't believe I'm saying this, but I'm gonna play the French again because bishop d3 is very interesting. I have never played the Schlechter variation with either side. I'm going to try to explore some other moves. Maybe I think if I go knight f6, then we just go into a normal advance where the bishop's on d3, which could also become the Tarrasch then. c5 is also interesting. What does the engine say? d4 is best. Okay, so I'm going to go d4 here. I'm going to prepare for the game and yeah, see you in a bit. I'm going to show you how it went. Okay, so you've seen the prep. I'm going to show you what happened. So Shako Chessmood played e4 and I did play my second ever French. And after d4, d5, unfortunately, he did not play what we have been preparing for, but he played knight c3. Why is the sound silent? Okay, so he played knight c3. And you've seen my prep, you've seen my previous game, you've seen that I enjoy a certain type of French, and that's the Rubinstein or the Fort Knox. So after d4, knight e4, I played bishop d7. He told me after the game, or no, excuse me, my previous opponent did, that he had never seen that before. But in any case, the idea behind the Fort Knox is to get the bishop to c6. So after knight f3, bishop c6. This is a great way to get the bishop out of your pawn chain. Let's turn on the engine. So my opponent played bishop d3 here, which is fine. Knight d7, I castled. He played knight gf6. I went knight. I played knight gf6. He played knight g3, which is fine. And here you can play two different moves. I mean, you can play many different moves, as you can see in the book. But you can develop the bishop, the dark squared bishop, three different ways. You can play g6, bishop g7, bishop e7, or bishop d6. Bishop d6 is the riskiest move. And I like it the best. Bishop e7 is objectively safer. So I played bishop d6. The downside is, of course, that the bishop could be harassed after c4, c5, and b4, b5. So you have two bishops that are kind of vulnerable on the queen side. My opponent played rook e1, which is still the main move. And here I had been preparing. I actually had this position in my prep at some point half a year ago when I was preparing the French repertoire. I don't want to castle here. I want to avoid c4, c5, and knight e5. If knight e5 happens now, what do I do? I can either move my bishop now, or on knight e5 lose the light squared bishop. If I don't play b6 now, I'm in trouble. So I played b6, even though, as you guys can see, hopefully, the engine says it's not the best move. The idea is if knight e5, then I go bishop b7. So he played c4 and we're out of book. Okay, so we can turn this off, castles. b3, which I don't really understand, except that you know he may wish to play bishop a3. But after bishop b7, he played bishop b2. And now my goal with b6, bishop b7 wasn't just to save my bishop, it was to play c5. So c5 finally challenges the center. Queen e2, what he played, I think is a fine move. d5 is taking a ton of responsibility, I think, unnecessarily. That's the engine move. So I think queen e2 is perfectly fine. Queen c7, fine, I want to go rook e8, rook d8, rook a d1, rook a d8, knight e5. Okay, so this is the first move in the game that actually does something active. And it's not really a good move because it gives away control over d4. And I get to initiate a bunch of very, very favorable trades for me. So cd, bishop d, and knight e5. And now after knight e5, bishop e5, I couldn't decide what to do. I don't want to take on e5, or I didn't want to take on e5 trading everything, even though I may have some tricks against the d3 bishop, they don't really exist. So I had decided to decline the trade with queen c6. f3 is forced. I think queen e1 just runs into bishop e5, rook e5, and queen c7, which is another tempo. So f3, fine. And now queen c5 check. Because I was hoping the king would go to h1, in which case, if he had played king h1, I would have taken on e5 twice. And the reason being, every endgame is now slightly more favorable because the king is a square further away from the center. He played king f1, which is a great move. Now, my opponent's classical rating, as you can see, is like 1500, but he played really well. Okay, I didn't know what to do here, but I did know that I didn't want to trade. With the king on f1, I don't want to trade. And I'm guessing my move is suboptimal, but it's fine, bishop e7. Okay, he played queen e3, offering another trade, and now I don't really have an easy way to decline. So I took, rook takes, and I had my biggest think of the game here, but I ended up playing the move in about 5 seconds. Or sorry, I had the most important decision in the game to make here, but I made my move in a second. So I wanted to play knight d7. The reason I wanted to play knight d7 is because I wanted to get my knight to c5, exploiting the pinned bishop. So I wanted to do this with tempo. However, I don't really think I can do that straight away, because my opponent has bishop c7. And my calculation went knight d7, bishop c7, rook c8, bishop takes h7, of course, wins a pawn, king takes h7, rook takes d7. And now bishop c5 winning. That's what I thought, because I have bishop c6 in the end. However, there's a flaw. I played knight d7, my opponent had a long think. Bishop c7. Now, there was an option for me to not play rook c8. I was briefly considering playing the move knight c5, but it just doesn't work. If I go knight c5 here, bishop d8, rook d8, the bishop is safely defended and b4 is happening. So I have to go rook c8. And now my opponent must win a pawn. If he doesn't win a pawn, then the bishop moves again, and I'm just going to win that bishop. Well, not the full piece, but the bishop pair, because on bishop f4 I have g5. So he has to take on h7, king takes, rook takes, and now bishop c5. That's the entire point. And he needs to play bishop d6 here. I did see that move, and I thought, okay, bishop d6, I take on e3, takes on f8. I didn't calculate further than that, but I thought it was fine. But he played rook e d3, which I think is a very bad move. In hindsight, although I didn't see that I have an immediate win if he blunders. So, of course, I have to play bishop c6. I have to. Gaining a tempo. And he needs to do something drastic. Now, in my opinion, I got to this position and I thought I was winning. That's the reason I played knight d7. This was the main position I was trying to get. However, I'm not winning if my opponent plays knight e4, which is incredibly strange. Neither I nor my opponent have considered knight e4 during the game. The point being, if I take on d7, my opponent takes rook d7. And now what do? I've given up the exchange. I've won the exchange, but look at my opponent's pieces. For example, let's say I play king g6, which is probably what I would have played. This, for some reason, is equal. Well, what do I do with my extra exchange? I don't know. So my opponent's position is good, apparently. I didn't see knight e4. I didn't even consider knight e4. I just thought black wins here. My opponent played bishop d6, which is a move I hadn't considered at all, but I found an immediate refutation. So obviously if I take the bishop, I'm down a pawn. If I take the rook, my opponent takes the rook on f8, so neither of those two moves work. But when I play rook fd8, my opponent's losing material, and there's nothing he can do. If he moves the d7 rook, I win a bishop. If he moves the bishop, I win the exchange. So for example, bishop c5, I play bishop d7, rook f7, I take on d6. And that's what happened. He played rook takes f7, I won a bishop. And from here, of course, the position is winning. My conversion wasn't perfect, as you're going to see, but a decent player would just convert this very easily. Okay, he played rook a7. I played rook a8, which is great, forcing a trade, rook a8, bishop a8. And now it's two bishops versus knight and 3. And that, of course, depends on where the pawns are and how many passed pawns my opponent has. But in this particular position, it's very winning for two reasons. Excuse me. Reason number one, my d6 bishop is controlling the entire diagonal, preventing the pawns from moving, but it's also preventing the knight from moving because h2 hangs. So that's why it's easily winning. So king e2, king g6, king d3, and here I had a big think. I didn't know whether I should go king g5 or king towards the queen side. I played king g5, which is not a good move. Should have gone king f7. I wanted to double attack the knight. He should have gone knight e4 straight away, but he didn't. He played a4. Bishop c6 is a total blunder. So the entire idea of this endgame is, for white, is to play knight e4 check at the correct moment, forcing me to take, and then converting this pawn, forcing me to sack my bishop. I didn't think it worked here, but it did. So knight e4, bishop e4 forced, king e4 forced, of course. And now when I take on h2, my opponent's king is cut off, but there's b4. And I immediately need to rush back, or else I'm losing. So say king f6, a5, ba5, ba5. Luckily for me, my bishop is controlling the diagonal. And what I have to do is I have to control both pawns. So I have to play bishop g1 straight away. And what my opponent needs to do now is he needs to get either counterplay here or get the king to one of these two squares, play c5, and then he is winning. I thought this was winning for black. Apparently not. But something very similar happened in the game. So there isn't much point in going over this. So after a4, bishop c6. Oh, my opponent did play knight e4 here. Excuse me. I got totally confused. This is exactly what happened. Sorry. b4, king f6. Yeah. a5, ba5, ba5. And in this position, I played king e7, which is fine. I don't need to go bishop g1 straight away. I played it on the next move, now bishop g1. And I thought this is just winning. It's over. He played f4, which I didn't think was a good move. And I went back to f6. I didn't want to allow king e5. My bishop now controls everything. So technically, king e7 was a waste of tempo. g4, g6, I have to prevent f5. Now, I can also draw if I trade off both pawns, of course. I need to keep a pawn alive. So here the idea is, if f5, I can play e, f, g, f, and g5, passed pawn. Thank you very much. Game over. So king d3, which is a losing blunder, he needs to play g5 and get the king into d3 next, because then my king is a square worse. And I have a threat here. I'm threatening e5. So if he makes, first of all, these two pawns cannot move. So he either plays g5 check or moves the king. If he plays g5 check straight away, king somewhere, then king d3 or king e5, it doesn't really matter. Now he has more time, and I don't have a passed pawn, nor is my king close enough. So this is a very interesting point in the game. So let's say I go king d6. He goes to c3. His goal is to go king b4 and push c5. Now he isn't in time again. Now I can play e5. Okay, so after e5 he must take, and if he plays king b4 here, I'm just winning because I go king d6, the pawn cannot move, I'm going to win this pawn, and that's going to be it. However, after g5, king e7, king d3, king d6, he can wait, king e4. And what do? I cannot allow the king into e5, so let's say I go bishop c5. He waits, king d3. If I go e5 now, he goes king e4. And ef4, king f4, I cannot chase that king away. I can never control the light square. So let's say king e6, king e4. What do? Bishop somewhere, king f4. I can never move my bishop away from this diagonal and put him into Zugzwang. That's the point. This is very advanced stuff. However, after g6, he played king d3, and now it's immediately over. I played e5, and his king is too far away. It can never come back to e4 again. If he goes to e4 now, which is what he did, I'm winning because I played g5 check. And on king e4, king e6, he is now in Zugzwang because he has to give away the fourth rank. King d3, king e5, my king is in. And after king c3, bishop c5, his king cannot even reach b4. So after king b3, king d4, he finally resigned. And the game is over. I think this is a very instructive game. And first of all, I'm very happy to have won my second French in a row. I never really liked the French for black. I love it for white. And now I've played it 2 games in a row and won both games. Okay, join Lichessladders below if you want to challenge me. It's completely free. It's very fun. It's the best way to schedule tournament games, tournament classical games on Liches. I'll see you in the next one. Stay tuned for more chess, and bye-bye.